I realized something was wrong the night I sat in my car for 20 minutes, rehearsing how to walk into my own house without upsetting my wife. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went pale. I remember thinking, how did I get here? How did a normal guy like me end up scared of opening his own front door? I'm a 34-year-old electrician from Ohio. Nothing glamorous, nothing dramatic. I work steady hours, take care of the house, and used to look forward to simple evenings. Cooking dinner, watching a game, maybe tinkering with the old truck in the garage. My wife Lauren worked part-time at a dermatology office. She always had this polished, effortless confidence I admired. When we first met, she made me feel like I'd finally found someone who actually saw me. But over the last year, things changed. Slowly enough that it was easy to doubt my own thoughts. It started with comments that sounded like jokes but left bruises. "You still wearing that shirt? I swear you dress like you're allergic to mirrors. I don't know how your coworkers put up with you. You're such a people pleaser." Small things, things you convince yourself are harmless. Then the little digs became habits. If I cooked, she'd fix my food before eating. If I cleaned, she'd inspect everything for mistakes. If I talked about my day, she'd quietly pick up her phone, scrolling while nodding like she was listening. I'd go quiet and she'd say, "See? You never have anything interesting to say." Our friends didn't see it. Lauren was charming, quick with compliments, always making people laugh. I used to love that about her, but at home it was like she flipped a switch the moment the door closed. Money became the next pressure point. We had always split things pretty evenly, but suddenly she was too stressed for more hours at work and started leaning heavily on my income. Not in a crisis way, she just drifted out of responsibility. Packages arrived constantly. New clothes, skincare, little treats she said she deserved because life was so exhausting. When I suggested we slow down spending, she'd give me this sharp look, the kind that made me feel like a scolded child. And then came the nights out. It started with her signing up for a girls' social club that met every Thursday. At first I was happy she had friends to unwind with, but Thursdays turned into Fridays, then Saturdays. Sometimes she wouldn't come home until after midnight, saying they lost track of time. She always smelled like fancy cocktails and perfume I didn't recognize. Whenever I asked questions, because married people communicate, she'd sigh dramatically and accuse me of being controlling. "I'm allowed to have a life," she'd say. "Not everything revolves around you." I'd end up apologizing even though I didn't fully understand what I had done wrong. The moment everything shifted for me was stupidly ordinary. One Sunday morning, we were having coffee in the kitchen. She was scrolling on her phone with a small smirk on her face. I asked what was funny. She turned the screen away and said, "You wouldn't get it." Something about that, about the secrecy, the smugness, the way she dismissed me without even looking up, hit a nerve I didn't know was still alive. I felt my throat tighten. "Is everything okay with us?" I asked. She didn't pause, didn't think, didn't soften. "Honestly, you've gotten boring. I need excitement. Maybe you should work on yourself instead of hovering." Hovering. That's what she called trying to be a husband. I nodded because arguing never led anywhere. But inside, something finally clicked into place. A quiet shift. A small, steady flame lighting up in a dark room. And as she kept scrolling, smirking at something, or someone, I realized something simple and undeniable. Lauren didn't respect me anymore. And people don't change without consequences. I wish I could say things blew up overnight, but they didn't. They rotted slowly. After Ethan moved in, my routines started disappearing one by one. My quiet coffee before work turned into him blasting YouTube videos on the TV. My evenings cooking simple dinners turned into him criticizing whatever I made and ordering takeout on my card. "Because this is inedible, babe." He still hadn't found a job. At first I believed the excuses. The market sucks. They're ghosting me. These listings are scams. But then I started noticing his job search window minimized behind Steam or TikTok whenever I walked by. Money got tight fast. We used to split everything. Rent, utilities, groceries. Now we meant me. It started with, "Hey, can you cover my half this month? I'll Venmo you back when my unemployment hits." Unemployment never hit. Apparently he missed a form, and the system is broken. Somehow, Amazon and DoorDash had no trouble charging my card on time. The first time my account overdrafted, I sat on the bathroom floor, staring at the notification like it was a personal insult. Negative 6432. I had done everything right my whole life to avoid numbers like that. When I showed Ethan, he frowned at my phone, then at me. Why are you freaking out? It's just a temporary negative. You're so dramatic. He kissed my forehead like I was a kid having a tantrum and went back to his game. Little comments followed. You're lucky I'm not one of those guys who cheats. If I wasn't here, you'd be boring yourself to death. No offense, but your job is like entry level forever. Chill on the money stress. It's not that deep. I started working overtime to cover the gaps. Extra hours, extra claims, extra headaches. Meanwhile, he slept in, stayed up late, and somehow always had energy to argue when I got home exhausted. The betrayal didn't come as some big reveal. It came as a pattern I couldn't ignore anymore. One night I checked my email and saw 3 notifications from my credit card. New device login. I hadn't logged in. I opened the app and saw charges from a gaming store, food delivery, and a $109 limited edition controller. My stomach dropped. The shipping address was ours. The name on the order was his. I walked into the living room. He was on the couch, eating wings, a live stream playing on the TV. Did you use my card? I asked, holding up my phone. He barely glanced at me. You said I could, remember? I had said he could grab groceries one time when his card wasn't working. This is $200 on a controller, I said, and $40 on takeout, and more on games. He paused his stream with an annoyed sigh. You're really coming at me over a controller? I live here too. I can't have anything nice. You're being controlling. The word hit me wrong. Controlling. Me, the one quietly eating rice and frozen vegetables at lunch to keep us afloat. I never said you could just use my card whenever, I said. My voice shook, which only seemed to amuse him. He rolled his eyes. Relax. I'll pay you back when things level out. You're obsessed with money. It's honestly unattractive. That night I lay in bed staring at the ceiling while he snored beside me. My brain replayed the same facts. The overdraft, the controller, the dismissive tone, the way my life had shrunk down to making sure a grown man didn't bounce us into homelessness. And then he said something in his sleep, clear as day. Don't tell her. I don't know who her was or what he meant, but something inside me snapped, not in a loud, dramatic way, more like a lock sliding into place. I realized I wasn't safe with him, not emotionally, not financially. The next morning he asked if I could spot him for a subscription because it's only like $15, babe. I looked at him, really looked at him. The mess on the coffee table, the pile of laundry he never touched, the controller he'd bought with my debt, the easy expectation in his eyes. That was the moment. The quiet, solid thought that settled in my chest. I'm done. I did not explode or scream that night. After he walked out, still muttering about how we would fix his overdraft and we would figure out his credit card late fees, I sat at the kitchen table with my hands flat on the wood and realized I was done. Not emotionally done, not maybe we should talk done, logistically done. I work with numbers for a living. You can ignore feelings for a long time, but numbers are honest. So I opened my laptop, pulled up our online banking, and started treating my relationship like an audit. First, I downloaded everything. Bank statements, credit card summaries, screenshots of transfers from my account to his, Venmo receipts where he'd pay me back later with emojis and excuses. I saved text messages where he admitted he missed payments because he forgot or because they can wait. You're better with this stuff anyway. I named every folder by month and year. If anyone ever asked me who really paid for his I'm building a brand phase, I wanted timestamps. It felt cold, but for the first time in years, that coldness felt safe. Then I checked my direct deposit. My entire paycheck was still landing in the joint account before I moved what was left into my savings. I changed that in under 2 minutes, routing it to an account only in my name that he didn't know existed yet. Next was the lease. Technically, both our names were on it, but our landlord liked me and barely tolerated him. I emailed her from my work computer, asking if we could schedule a lease review, because my financial situation may be changing. That was all I needed to say. At work, I started coming in early and staying a little later, not because I was suddenly a model employee, but because I needed the printer. I printed out copies of everything I'd saved and stored them in a plain manila folder, buried in a drawer by my desk under HR forms and training manuals no one touched. At home, if he snooped through my things, he'd find nothing but organized chaos and old receipts. The more I dug, the worse it looked. He'd signed up for a credit card using my income on the application without telling me. He'd listed me as an authorized user, so his limit would be higher, then never gave me the card. I found an email chain with his business mentor where he bragged about how I handled the boring money stuff so he could focus on vision. He wrote that I would eat it if anything went wrong because she actually cares about her credit score. Reading that line was like someone pouring ice water straight down my spine. That was when the plan stopped being vague. If he saw me as a safety net, I was going to quietly cut every rope he'd tied to me and let him slam into the ground he'd picked. No screaming, no dramatic confrontation, just letting the system he'd abused finally touch him instead of me. I made a list on my phone. Separate finances completely. Remove myself from any account I didn't open. Let creditors talk to the person who actually owed them. Tell the truth to anyone who needed it and nothing more. I called my bank on my lunch break from the parking lot. I explained that I wanted to remove myself from an account I'd been added to without my clear consent. The woman on the phone was patient and calm in the way only someone who had heard every kind of financial disaster could be. She walked me through dispute options. She showed me which charges were fully in his name and which ones he tried to slide under household expenses. By the time the call ended, several accounts were flagged and any future changes would require my explicit approval. Then I called the credit card company he'd used my income for. I told them, clearly and plainly, that the information on the application was not provided with my knowledge. They took notes. They recorded the call. They thanked me for bringing this to our attention. At home, I played my role like always. I made dinner. I listened to him complain about clients who didn't get his genius. I nodded while he bragged about a new partnership he'd signed, quietly noting the name of the company so I could look it up later. What he didn't know was that while he talked, my phone sat face down on the table, screen lit with an email from our landlord confirming a meeting. Another email from my bank confirming a change to my direct deposit. Another from a creditor acknowledging a dispute. I wasn't sabotaging him. I was simply stepping out of the way of consequences he'd been trying to redirect onto me for years. If he wanted to live like nothing mattered, he could finally do it without my credit, my paycheck, or my name as a shield. The last step of my plan was quietest of all. I researched tenant laws, checked my state's rules about moving out mid-lease, and made sure I understood exactly what I was allowed to do. I was not going to give him a single legal excuse to drag me back in. By the end of that week, I had a packed folder at work, a protected account, and a meeting on the calendar that would decide where I lived next. He still thought we were in the same story, playing the same roles. He had no idea the script had already changed, and his safety net was already halfway gone. The morning everything unraveled didn't look dramatic from the outside. It was a Tuesday. I was tying my shoes for work when my phone buzzed twice. Emails from two different creditors addressed to him, not me, confirming that all future communication would go directly to the account holder. Then came a third email from the credit card company he'd opened using my income. They'd officially flagged the application for review. I didn't smile. I just felt something loosen in my chest, like a knot that had been pulled tight for too long. That afternoon, our landlord met with us. She was polite, but she didn't bother hiding the annoyance she'd built up over months of late payments and noise complaints, with his name at the center of every note. "I'm updating the lease," she said, sliding two forms across the table. "One is for removing a tenant, one is for terminating early. Either way, I need clarity on who is actually staying." I had already decided. "I'm leaving," I said calmly. "My last day will be the end of the month." Tyler's head snapped toward me like he'd been slapped. "What? Babe, what are you talking about? We didn't discuss this." I kept my eyes on the landlord. "I'll pay my portion through the end of the month. After that, I'm not responsible." He laughed too loudly. "This is ridiculous. We're fine. Tell her we're fine." But I didn't. I signed the paper, slid it back, and the landlord gave me a small nod. Supportive, relieved, maybe both. When we got home, he slammed the door behind us. "So that's it? You're bailing on me?" "No," I said. "I'm removing myself from a situation that's draining me." He started pacing. "You can't just leave. You handle the bills. You know how to do that stuff. I can't juggle all this on my own." "That's exactly the problem," I said quietly. Then he made the mistake of picking up my phone from the counter. He saw the emails. All of them. "What is this?" he demanded. "What did you tell them? Why are they talking to me now? You screwed something up, didn't you?" "I told them the truth," I said, "that I didn't consent to being responsible for your accounts." He went pale, then red, then pale again. "You can't do that. They'll come after me now." I didn't respond, because that was the point. For days after that, he spiraled. Calls from creditors, emails warning him about missed payments, notifications he used to forward to me without reading. He'd stomp around the apartment swearing under his breath, slamming drawers, accusing me of setting him up. But I didn't respond to any of it. Not once. I packed a little every night while he ranted. Kitchen first, then clothes, then the few sentimental things I hadn't let him toss or borrow or break. The night before I left, he tried one more tactic. His soft voice, his sad eyes, the same ones that used to get me to fix everything he broke. "I'll change," he whispered. "I'll get a real job. I'll pay you back. Just don't do this. Don't leave me." He reached for my hand. I stepped back before he touched me. "Tyler," I said, "you were supposed to be my partner, not my dependent." He didn't reply. He just stared at me like he suddenly saw me as a stranger. I think that was the first honest moment we had in months. The next day, I left the apartment keys in a neat little pile on the counter with the garage fob and a short note. "Please direct all future financial matters to the person responsible. Take care." I drove away without crying, not out of strength, just relief. 2 weeks later, a mutual acquaintance told me Tyler had moved out in a hurry after the landlord served him a notice for unpaid rent. He'd burned through what little credit he had left. His business mentor blocked him. His gaming subscriptions lapsed one by one. Reality caught him exactly the way I knew it would, directly, painfully, and in his own name for the first time in years. Meanwhile, my life got quiet again, peaceful even. I opened my own mail without dread. I cooked dinner in a clean kitchen. I sat on my couch without tiptoeing around someone else's moods. I didn't feel triumphant, just free. If there's a moral here, it's simple. Some people don't need punishment. They just need you to stop shielding them from themselves. And when you finally move out of the way, their consequences arrive right on schedule.